This is the Roots and All podcast, and I'm your host, Sarah Wilson. Join me as I talk about all aspects of gardening with some of the top horticulturists from around the world. In this episode of Roots and All, I'm joined by Liz Morley, the force behind the Instagram tag @u_dig_gardens, and Nottingham College's inspiring Wilder Campuses project, where she's transforming educational spaces into thriving biodiverse landscapes. We explore her accessible, low-budget approach to rewilding and how it's reconnecting people with nature right where they study and work.
My name's Liz Morley, and I run a project at Nottingham College called Wilding Campuses, which is all about bringing biodiversity onto campus and engaging all the students with nature. Personally, I've not come from a professional horticulture background. I was a photography teacher for years, studied photography at college. I've just been a long-term kind of gardening and nature nut, and that's spilled over into this kind of obsession that I've had, has spilled over into my job. We found some funding from the National Lottery via an organisation called Students Organising for Sustainability, who are absolutely brilliant. They do all kinds of things like across different unis and colleges in Britain, engaging students with nature. And so they came to us and said, we have a pot of money, do you want to apply for this grant? I was like, yes, please. And it was just, absolutely perfect for me. It kind of combined my obsessions with nature and wildlife with kind of my joy and love of working with young people and trying to kind of encourage and inspire young people. The college that I work at, so when I tell people I work at a college, I think a lot of people imagine university, but it's an FE college. So FE colleges were started as a kind of vocational thing. And I think there's a bit of kind of almost working class pride there in a way, because FE colleges, they're designed for, our college, we have some of the worst schools in Britain in Nottingham. A lot of students kind of coming out of secondary school with very few qualifications, and we're the kind of establishment that picks them up and can offer them a second chance or a third chance sometimes. So we do all kinds of qualifications for, as well as kind of like the higher level qualifications. We do all kinds of qualifications for the students that have maybe struggled with conventional education as well. So we've got a really big cohort of them. And we've got a lot of kind of special educational needs learners, things like that. And we're a whopping establishment. So we've got 25,000 students. So a good bunch of young people. The majority of them are between like 16 and 18 years old. And I think that's an age where, speaking from personal experience, I don't think a lot of kids that age have had much chance to do much gardening. You do a bit at primary school, then you get into your teenage years and suddenly it's kind of like, that's not important anymore. And a lot of them kind of almost see gardening as like a granny activity or like an old person thing. A lot of them also don't really have access to land, so they might be living in flats where they don't have a garden space. And so it's really nice being able to kind of give them that chance to try it out, but also kind of letting them see that it's not like a kind of upper class granny activity. It's actually something that everybody can really kind of, there's a million different facets to gardening and horticulture and nature, and it's something that has benefits for everybody in all kinds of different ways as well.
One of my other questions later on was to ask you if anybody else is doing this. Is that like a one-off funding pot, or is this sustainable going forward, and is it available kind of across the UK?
So at the moment, ours was a pilot project. So at the moment, it's us, one of the secondary schools in Nottingham, and Nottingham University have also got the kind of same pot of funding. And then hopefully it'll be rolled out further. I don't know if it'll be rolled out with kind of little pots of money for different establishments to apply for. So I think it just depends kind of how students organising for sustainability, how all their grant applications go. As far as Nottingham College goes, I'm definitely keen to take the project further if I can. What we have is, for our like 8 different campuses that we've got a little estates team, what's called an estates team, but they're all people like plumbers and handymen, and none of them are outside people. We don't have any people kind of employed by the college who kind of can do outside stuff, even like mowing and hedge cutting and stuff. We get contractors in to do that at the moment. So I'm working with our estates team to see if we can kind of maybe bring a bit more of that in-house. They've got a really slim budget for it. So I think across the 8 campuses, their budget kind of for the year is like something like £8,000, which when you've got kind of big trees on campus that need kind of tree surgeons in to look after them, stuff like that, it doesn't really go very far. So it's like, how can we kind of keep our outside spaces in the gardens we've built looking amazing and doing good for the students without it breaking the bank? That's like something that I felt like I could kind of get my teeth stuck into, because I come from a very DIY background. I've always been involved in like the punk scene. I've always played in bands. I've always run club nights and done kind of DIY music stuff and things where you don't have any money and where you're making something happen on a shoestring, and things can still be achieved, even if it's kind of a bit more of a struggle. And if you have to do things in a different way, you can still get things done. Even if you've only got a kind of slim budget, you can make things happen.
So some of the qualifications, are they related to horticulture or arboriculture? And can you rope the students into this maintenance kind of schedule?
No, which seems crazy. It's like we haven't got a single horticulture course. We haven't got any kind of land-based courses at all. The closest we have to it is animal care, where they do a little ecology unit and have to put up a fence. And I think they have to do a bit of hedge trimming as well. Oh, and do a biodiversity survey, which has been really good for us as well. But that's something else as well that I'm trying to get changed at college. I'm sure there's demand for it. And I'm sure that that's something we could tie into kind of like the ongoing care as well of any of these spaces that we've made and built.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that does seem to make sense, doesn't it? So you mentioned you've got 8 campuses. How much kind of land area are we talking about in total?
Well, they're all really different. So we've got one campus on the edge of town that has 7 hectares. It's a really big campus, and a lot of that's just been turned over to meadow. And we've got some big beech trees at the back that have got tree preservation orders on. We've put loads of bat boxes up in those. So that's been a brilliant space to kind of play with and try and do our bit for nature there. But then our other campuses are much more urban. So we've got one in the city, which is basically just got a little courtyard space. It's just brick and stone and nothing green at all. We've got another one down by the train station, which had these big beds out the front. The campus, that one was only built a few years ago. And what they did was they put in these beautiful kind of raised corten planters, massive ones, kind of like 50 metres by 10 metres. And they filled them full of brilliant perennial plants. This was perhaps 6 years ago. And then the maintenance on that has been getting someone down with a strimmer 3 times a year and just strimming everything to the ground, which is crazy. So there's tons and tons of weeds and brambles in there that the strimming didn't kill, but the strimming has killed everything, all the perennials, apart from some little Nepeta, which is just like clung on to life. So that bit we've been really working hard to kind of revamp. And we've gone down what you call the xeric garden approach, where we've tried to make it drought tolerant. So we spread loads of gravel, rubble and sand and planted loads of drought tolerant plants in that. Because Nottingham City Council, it's like a big open public space. Some of the beds belong to the council, some beds belong to the college. And I think what had been happening as well is that the council workers came down to kind of strim the council beds, but they came around the college beds as well. They didn't realise that they were actually ours, and they were strimming everything off in the college beds. So we've found out kind of who are the council workers that come down and asked them to leave off it. We had like a couple of initial problems with that happening, which is not what you want, really. It's like all of the joys and challenges of urban gardening in public spaces. You soon find out there's like a lot of kind of little challenges that you come up against.
Yeah, I bet. And so are you linked in with John Little and his Care Not Capital scheme?
Yeah, so John Little's been a massive inspiration, because when you go to his garden, you can see its potential for kind of public space. I know you've had him on as a guest, haven't you?
Yeah.
I've got so much time for John Little. I think he's brilliant. And I think his approach has been so kind of, for me, it was like a game changer, seeing how he uses all that recycled substrate. And in my own garden, I'd had a part of my own garden that was just kind of like 2 foot of rubble. When I moved into my house, it had like these big, horrible, scruffy conifers growing in it. And so I took these like half dead conifers out and was left with all of this gravel and rubble. I thought, oh, shall I shift it and put down soil? And then instead, I started planting loads of little kind of Mediterranean plants. I think I must have been on holiday to Greece or somewhere and seen kind of all the olive groves. And so I started putting in kind of Bellota and Santolina, stuff like that. And it grew amazingly. And instantly, that part of my garden was my very favourite part of the garden. And then when I saw that John Little hadn't opened gardens, and I read that he was doing something similar, but obviously he's doing it on a much bigger scale with much more kind of intent and purpose. It's like he's not just kind of footling around in a little tiny suburban garden like I am. He's doing it on a big scale. I went down to see his garden and I was just like, this is absolutely amazing. And then it just makes so much sense. It's like I've been kind of talking quite closely with our council green space team, and some of the beds that they put in down the side of college, they've had irrigation systems put in them, and they've actually caused a lot more problems than they've done kind of more harm than good in a way. I think they had like a really complicated system where people didn't know how to switch it off and the irrigation was running too much, and then plants were drowning and they got bulrushes growing in the beds. And then when you try and garden in those beds as well, you're constantly hitting the irrigation pipes as well. It makes it really tricky to kind of actually get a trowel in the soil and garden it. So I think irrigation can be a real pain, but if you're making kind of drought tolerant beds with plants that are naturally kind of thrive in those dry conditions, it means you don't have to worry about your irrigation system, you save on costs. And yeah, John Little's really proved kind of the value for biodiversity as well that can have. Even if the plants are kind of droughted and stressed out, it can be brilliant for the little invertebrates who they actually, it's like in your veg patch. If you have a brassica that's kind of a bit stressed and hasn't been watered enough, it gets all the grey woolly aphids, it gets all the cabbage white butterflies laying their eggs on it. And so you can see how stressed plants are kind of actually sometimes better for insect life, and that feeds the food chain. And I think so long as they've got a few like pretty flowers on them still, it doesn't actually look too bad, and it works for people as well as wildlife.
Yeah, so in terms of working for people, well, there's a couple of things that cropped up as you were speaking in my brain. And one of them was that, you know, you're at Coalface, you're working with students. And I think there's a hope amongst horticulturists that maybe, you know, gardening is becoming a bit trendy, particularly with the houseplant movement, and that, you know, younger people are getting into it. You see it on social media, but it doesn't sound as if that's kind of really gained traction just yet.
I would say that the first thing I did when I got this job was I zoomed around all our different college campuses and stuck up posters everywhere saying, get in touch if you're interested in helping nature. And then went to our like enrichment team, who are the people who organise like netball on a Wednesday afternoon, and said, we can do a gardening club. Let's get students signed up. And we've had a bit of uptake through that. So I'd say I've been kind of quite surprised at some of the students that have shown up. It's not the ones that you might traditionally think would be kind of really interested in gardening. And so I think it's hard to judge. I think that generally gardening still isn't seen as a particularly cool thing by the majority of 16 to 18-year-olds. But I suppose in a college with that many students, then you're bound to find some. But I think my kind of greatest joy has been where I've convinced tutors to bring whole groups of students that they teach down to do activities with us, like making a little microforest or doing some bulb planting or something like that. And it's like students who never ever thought that gardening was for them. It's like all of our motor vehicle maintenance lads came down, and we've got some proper characters in that group. And they showed up and I was like, oh, we've got a few here who think they're bad lads. And anyway, they got stuck in. It was a nice sunny day with them. And they were like, they started kind of like, when you're all working together with your hands in the soil, and then it's like you're outside, it's sunny, you can mess around a bit. And the students started like kind of relaxing and letting their guard down a bit and dropping a bit at the front. And then they were going, oh, gardening's for old people. And I was like, we're not doing gardening, we're doing grounds work. and then they were like planting these trees, and they were planting a little oak tree. And we were talking about the major oak in Nottingham, which is the famous Robin Hood one. I think it's 580 years old or something like that, maybe even older. And we were talking about how old it is, and they were going, this tree might be here in 500 years' time. They were like, oh my God. And then by the end of the day, a few of them were going, we could do this as a job. They were really really into it. I was so surprised and really happy about that. So we've had, groups of students come down where students that haven't had the chance to try it before and wouldn't have ever thought it was for them have given it a go and really got on board with it. And then they've come back to volunteer sessions later. So that's been really lovely as well. So hopefully, although gardening's still got a bit of a it's not cool thing going on, hopefully if you kind of introduce them to these different facets of gardening, that it's not all about growing some petunias for a window box, that it's like planting forests, that it can be about supporting kind of wildlife, that it can be about clean air, clean water, things like that. And they start to realise that it's not actually uncool at all. It's very cool indeed.
That's brilliant. I mean, so you've got your sort of people that come and volunteer. You've got people who get maybe a little bit railroaded into it by their tutors, but end up loving it. But also, do you get people just spending time out there, in breaks and things?
Absolutely. So we've built a garden at one of our campuses where it hasn't got any green space kind of directly near that campus. And there was a strip just at the side that's about kind of 8 foot wide that was just all gravel. And we've put in some little beds there and some picnic tables and planted that up. And students are hanging out there now, when it used to just be it was a nothing space. And a lot of the spaces that we've made, people are kind of using them and also coming back to us with comments as well, that it's giving them somewhere to go and hang out, and that they really enjoy being kind of around that green and flowers. So I've had positive feedback.
So as part of your job, are you now hands-on gardening?
Well, my job is project manager, that's what it's called. But I just love the kind of hands-on part of it. That to me is the really important part. And so I do as much of that as I possibly can. We've had a couple of brilliant gardeners in Nottingham come down and help us out. We've got a guy called Jack who runs a little organisation called Grow Knots, who is he's like the city gardener in a way. And he gets a bit of money from the business improvement districts in Nottingham to go around and garden planters, things like that, and build little community gardens and do public plant-ups. He's been down and he's done tons with us, and he's absolutely excellent. But it's like, I don't just want to kind of say, this is what we'd like to do, and then just get somebody else to do everything. It's like, I want to be in there kind of making it happen as well, because that's the bit I love, really. It's a bit selfish.
No, not at all. I just wondered if you were getting in trouble, if you were out with your secateurs and you were supposed to be like in a meeting or, doing your office job.
I did actually, because I teach A-level photography 4 days a week and I'm rewilding in campuses 1 day a week. So my boss, he caught me watering on a day where I was supposed to be doing my A-level admin. But my results this year were just as good as always, so I got away with it.
Well done. So you can have volunteers from the general public, is that kind of allowed?
Yeah, there's some kind of safeguarding things that you have to think about. So it's like a lot of the work we're doing is in a public space anyway, and we can have volunteers from the general public so long as they're not left alone with the students. So we have had a few kind of gardeners come and volunteer with us. We haven't really had kind of just passerbys, stop and get stuck in or anything like that. But yeah, it's something we have to be kind of stick to all the regulations around, just to make sure that our students are okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And did I see you'd put a shout out for plants and seeds?
Yes. So, because our college order system, we have to set up suppliers, and that's a really lengthy process. It takes a couple of months to set up a new supplier and have it all go through finance and be approved. So we've got a couple of plant suppliers set up. We're using Howard Nursery, who are really good. They send us bare root plants and they're fab. But there's certain plants that I've just not been able to get my hands on, because you're kind of a bit limited to what their stock is. So I'm trying to get more winter interest plants into our planters, because our students are mainly there through autumn, winter, spring. And so I'd love kind of donations of any winter interest plants. And also we've built an allotment space as well. And so any donation of seeds for that, and any kind of wildflower seeds or seeds of anything kind of interesting and a bit out of the ordinary, would be really nice.
Yeah. I mean, is the food poverty angle kind of a factor when you're growing food? Because, obviously it's getting more difficult for people to afford food.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's like giving people that sense of autonomy, that they can grow their own vegetables, that there is kind of the potential for enriching their lives, making their lives healthier. And so showing people that we've got spaces at college now where you can grow vegetables. So we've got at our big campus, Baseford, we've set up an allotment where the students are growing veggies. And then we've also got kind of a veg patch at our high pavement campus, which is the one which was like a little strip of gravel. And I think that's so important. You know, when you think about people not knowing or understanding where food comes from and not realizing that you can put a few seeds in the ground, and then if you give it the proper care, a few months later you could have some delicious carrots or some green beans or something like that. And it's another angle that really draws people in as well. So if you're thinking about getting people interested in gardening, most people love food, don't they? And it's something really pleasant about eating together and, yeah, thinking about kind of making something tasty, like a little treat out of the plants that you're growing. So it is like almost like you're getting a little prize or a reward at the end of growing something, when you could get some lovely strawberries or something like that. Our strawberry patch, though, the students went to harvest some strawberries and there was a big rat sat in there under the strawberry leaf. So again, the challenges of urban gardening, eh?
Well, that's not just urban gardening. I mean, I garden in a rural location, and we have a little friend who we call Roland, who pops his head up now and then,
Yeah.
or, you know, drops down from a plant just above your head. So, yeah, it's just par for the course, I think.
Connecting with nature. Rats are quite cute when you see them up close, aren't they?
Yeah, very cute. And this one's had babies. They're really sweet. You know, it's fine. Just you live and let live. You have to get on with it. I mean, it's a huge undertaking by the sounds of it. But I tend to think that if you've got somebody passionate behind it like you, and they're a bit of a force of nature, then these things have a way of working out and carrying forward. I do wish you a lot of luck with that, because, you know, it's a challenge, I'm sure, given all the factors that you've got. But going forward, will this be a blueprint, do you think, for other organisations?
It would be amazing if it could be, wouldn't it? I think that it has brought so many benefits. It's like the nature-based solutions benefits that it's brought. And there's a lady called Blanche Cameron, who's one of John Little's friends. She came up to see what we were doing, and she lectures at UCL, University of Central London, doing architecture. And she kind of introduced me to this concept of nature-based solutions, where it's like the more green you can get into the urban space, the cooler cities stay, the cleaner the air is, the cleaner the water is. So it's like it filters water before it goes back into watercourses. And it's like the benefits for the city as a whole could be mega, and the benefits as well for our students. Sometimes I feel like what I'm doing is just a drop in the ocean, but you're right. If it could be kind of like the start of something, and if it can show people you can achieve this, you can do this, you can do this, and if we can kind of shout about it enough and kind of let people know, come on, everyone, instead of kind of paving over that bit, why don't we put planters in and plant some stuff? Then I think it's got so much potential. And I think what we've done, it's brought an extra dimension to the lives of our students, even from just coming into college, and now they're seeing something nice on the way in. It's like they're not seeing some like trimmed bare soil and a few scruffy old dead plants. They're seeing some beds with kind of some visual interest. It's looking prettier. And then they've got somewhere nicer to kind of hang out and socialise. And it's that kind of feeling of being in a place that's had a bit of care lavished on it as well, and that they might want to kind of carry on with that and help with that. I just think it's got so many positive knock-on effects that it'd be brilliant to see it kind of grow, or at least definitely to continue and spread to other establishments as well.
Absolutely. So if anybody wanted to find out more, and more importantly, to support you or to maybe donate the plants and seeds that you're after, where can they go?
Well, my main kind of social media thing is I use Instagram a lot. And my Instagram is u_dig_gardens. Or if anyone just wanted to email me, they could do. It's elizabeth.morley@nottinghamcollege.ac.uk. So yeah, I'd love to hear from people who are kind of interested in doing something similar, or who even had maybe some seeds to offer us or something like that. And yeah, it would be brilliant to hear from people.
Thanks, Liz, for being an inspiration, and thanks to you for listening. If you like this episode, you might also enjoy episode 336, Creating an Ark with Mary Reynolds, and episode 106, More Than Weeds with Sophie Leguil. You can download or listen to the podcast direct from the website rootsandall.co.uk. Please also check out my Patreon, where you can make a one-off donation or take out a monthly subscription to help support the podcast. Because if you enjoy the show, please help it continue. I also have a GoFundMe where you can make a one-off donation. Even a one-off donation of £1 helps, and I'll be really grateful for your support. So please go to Patreon or GoFundMe and search for Roots and All Podcast.